Greetings. Pastor Nathan of Grace Lutheran Church back again with another edition of the Semicon Vids, this time for the week leading to the 17th Sunday after Pentecost, which lands on September 19th, 2021. I'm in the office again, and I probably will be from now on. I mean, I'm not going to live here or anything, but I'm going to try to spend more time in the office now that the pandemic hopefully is kind of winding down, but at very least we're meeting in person this coming Sunday, finally after about a year and a half of being strictly online. So we will be in person, but also with an online component. So if you watch the services only online, you can still do that. and these videos will continue, even though we'll be in person and stuff. These videos will continue to the end of this season after Pentecost, which will be like in November sometime. So that will be the one consistent part as we move forward and trying to find some normalcy in our lives and all that kind of stuff. But the readings for this 17th Sunday, these Sundays after Pentecost get so confusing. The 17th Sunday after Pentecost. Right, yeah. The semi-continuous first reading is out of Proverbs, chapter 31, verses 10 to 31. And the psalm is Psalm 1. But before we read those, let's have a word of prayer. The Lord be with you. Let's pray. Your word is our wisdom, and it gives insight, strength, and courage. Open our hearts and minds on this day that we might receive what you want to give. Speak, Lord. Your people listen. Amen. Again, the semi-continuous first reading is out of Proverbs chapter 31, verses 1 to 31. A capable wife who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts her, and she will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax, and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from far away. She rises while it's still night, and provides food for her household, and tasks for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable, and her lamp doesn't go out at night. She puts her hand to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches her hands out to the needy. She's not afraid for her household when it snows, for all her household are clothed in crimson. She makes herself coverings. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the city gates, taking his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She supplies the merchant with sashes. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. The teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and doesn't eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her happy, her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her a share in the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the city gates. The word of the Lord. And the semi-continuous psalm is Psalm 1. Happy are they who have not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor lingered in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seats of the scornful. Their delight is in the law of the Lord, and they meditate on God's teaching day and night. They are like trees planted by streams of water, bearing fruit in due season, with leaves that do not wither. Everything they do shall prosper. It's not so with the wicked. They are like chaff which the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked shall not stand upright when judgment comes, nor the sinner in the counsel of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked shall be destroyed. Psalm 1. So when I first read this, I'll be honest, with the Proverbs passage, I'll be honest, I didn't really like it. Not because I don't think it has merit or anything like that, but because, I mean, it's describing this perfect wife, and it seems, I don't know, to me it seems kind of degrading. Like, why are you talking about women like this? That you're kind of sizing them up and trying to make them perfect and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if that's actually the point. In that, a keepable wife who can find, and keepable. I saw in this podcast that I listened to, specifically about the text for every week. Capable is actually translated poorly. It should be something more of full of valor, or strong or courageous. But I guess like valor is probably a much better, honorable perhaps. It's a much better translation. Sorry, there's light in my face. I'm gonna move here. Or I can just cover this there. If that helps. Anyways, so it's talking about like who can find such a woman like this, and goes through this whole long list of stuff that really, if we're honest, no one does this. Women or men, no one does this. And talking about all these things, and I mean, if you were listening carefully, if you're saying like, "Oh, my spouse does that," my spouse is this, no, they're not. Because no one is like this, has all this stuff ready, doesn't sleep because they prepare food all the time, takes care of the finances, dresses well, but doesn't care about looks, blah 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 blah, all this stuff. It describes this, what the world, I think, would say is the perfect person, the perfect mate, or the greatest of us all, or whatever. But I think what this passage is saying, at least as I was reading it, I mean, that's kind of like a pipe dream. That's we're chasing, something that just doesn't exist, and so that's not what we should be chasing, because it's who can find such a person. And this passage ends, which also ends the book of Proverbs. Where is it? Charm is deceitful, but beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her a share in the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the city gates. I think that is the one we're looking for. That's the one. I mean, I'm not trying to give dating advice or whatever, but I think, or what we're aiming for, I guess, because the mark, or not the mark, the foundation of a good person would be someone who fears the Lord, someone who respects God and who understands God's truths, God's promises, God's ways, God's ways of grace and peace and mercy and love. And that is the foundation of our morality, who we are, how we treat each other, all that kind of stuff, our community. And so someone who's grounded in that, someone who is who sees everything through that lens, through the lens of the fear, the respect, the honor of God. You know, other things fall into place. Other things become honorable. Other things become like more gracious, more merciful, more loving, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's. So instead of like looking at this passage and trying to compare yourself, use it as a checklist to say like, well, am I this? Well, I could be more of this, or whatever, so on and so forth. I think the main thing is love God. Understand what God is saying, what God is doing, or try to at least, and try to apply as much of that into your life as you can. And I think then our ability to love each other, to respect each other, to treat each other well and with honor, it will increase increasingly. It will increase exponentially, I guess. That's what I was trying to say. And we just become better people. Not because not because it's a competition who can be the best. I mean, that would be in the text that we get for Sunday, the gospel text at least. Who's the greatest among all of us or whatever. It isn't a competition per se, but we do it for the good of all, for the good of our community, for the good of our relationships, for the good of others, as we put their needs first and see the importance that they play in our lives, in our community as well. And to serve that, not to be a servant of them or to them or whatever, but to serve them in keeping in mind their needs. Maybe not 100% putting their needs before your own, but keeping in mind their needs and being considerate and being loving and all that kind of stuff. And that ties in very well with the readings that we get for this Sunday. Again, the disciples arguing about who's greatest among them all. Jesus says, if you want to be great, then you have to be servant to all and stuff. And perhaps I'm going through this with that in my mind as well. But I think that's an important lesson. Like in this world, we like to compare. We like to size ourselves up against other people who maybe we admire, who maybe we don't admire. But we like to look at ourselves compared to them. But I think these passages are saying just don't. Don't even. But instead just love God. Learn to love God. And through that you learn to love each other. And that's what's most important. That's what's most important for our history, for our moving forward into the future, our community, and of course our relationships. And that's, I think that's the basis of the Christian faith. That we love God and we love each other. I mean, that's the two greatest commandments, right? The two greatest commandments that weren't really in the commandments. Not in those words at least. But it's true. It's what we're called to do, what we're created to do, and what we're empowered to do. And so that's my prayer for all of you, for myself, that we can be more and more in love with God, that we can be more in tune with God and more like God in our regard and respect for one another. And hopefully that would bring us to new heights of community in society and beyond, that the world just eventually becomes a better place. And that perhaps was the intention all along. Well, at least I hope it was, because that's what I'm kind of operating under that's what I'm operating under. So anyway, that's what I have for this week. I'm glad you're here with us and watching this. Thank you for doing that. And perhaps I'll see you in person on Sunday. If not, hopefully still see you online. And at very least, see you next week for another edition of the Semicon Vids. Take care, everyone. Peace.